Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Today's conversation is for you female entrepreneurs looking to make a big success in the world out there, overcoming your fear and finding your confidence. My guest, Laura Tynan, will be just telling us her journey, how she overcame her fear, if she had any, and to find her joy. Laura is the founder of LauraTynan.com and the creator of the Message for Millionaires Academy, providing female founders with the community support, business strategies, and spiritual tools to thrive in business and life. Laura has been recognized by the Financial Times as the top 20 financial female leader by Yahoo Finance, as a global champion for women in business. She's also an international award-winning speaker and has shared her passion for progressing gender equality and empowering women while speaking on stages across Europe, including Forbes Under 30. Laura is also host of the Top 10 podcast, Make Millions to Impact Millions, where she interviews impact-driven entrepreneurs around the world, sharing their success stories and strategies on how to grow a profitable, purpose-led business. She spent the past decade building a career in finance while working with global advisory firms supporting C-suite clients with a multiple million pounds deal and holding board position of companies going through a financial turnaround. I think this conversation will be so inspiring because it will inspire you to be able to find your voice in the workplace, give you the tools you need, both mentally and spiritually, to help you navigate your challenges and find your joy. She'll be talking about the pain most entrepreneurs go through from her podcast, listening to her podcast and understanding the challenges that women face and how these women have overcome those pain to find their joy. Let's meet our wonderful guest, Laura, as she shares her story. Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Today's conversation, like I always say at the beginning, is about entrepreneurship, female empowerment, helping women out there, women businesses, finding your confidence as a woman. How would you do? My guest, Laura Tynan, will be telling you just her journey, how she's managed to overcome her challenges and how she's managing to make it and help other women succeed in this business. How are you?
Hi, Anne. I'm doing great. How are you keeping?
I'm well. It's challenging. The weather is not bright.
Mm-hmm.
It's dark and grey. And I'm in London right now, so it's not always the best, but it's what it is, and we learn to live with it. And absolutely delighted to have you on board because of your messages are so clear. Like I know I said it in intro, but one of the things I find fascinating about you is that your passion is in providing female businesses founder, like people who founded businesses and people who are struggling, people who are looking for new ideas, people who are looking for how to get their branding and marketing out there with a range of tools to be successful. That's just truly amazing. And I'm not even sure how you got started, but before we even get started, can you tell us, who are you?
Who am I? I mean, that's a big question where we have to go soul deep. Who are we all but source in the physical manifestation, right? But I guess to give a background, I'm sure, which is the real question you're asking, is to, who I am and why I do what I do. So I spent about 10 years, almost a decade, working within corporate finance. And I got my start off working with a company in Ireland called Deloitte. I was working as a forensic accountant. So if you've ever seen The Accountant with Ben Affleck, it's like that, but not the Hollywood version. So that's how I really got started in the world of finance and business, and was really fascinated in personal development and had been working with leaders like Bob Proctor and Tony Robbins to learn, like, how do you use the tools of personal growth and development to accelerate, to be more successful. And I was very much applying it back at the time to my corporate career. And honestly, things were going along track as I had planned to eventually build a career in corporate and move to partnership. Global leadership was where my vision was. And then I came to London to further my career. I did a career shift. I went into financial restructuring, and I went to my first ever women's networking event. And looking back on it, I feel very naive because Even when I studied finance, I was one of 8 women in a group of 60 men. Even when I worked in Deloitte, there were no female partners. And it wasn't until I was sat in that room in Bloomberg and the CEO of an organization called 100 Women in Finance, a dear friend of mine now, Amanda Pullinger, came on stage, and I never forget these words. She said, at the current rate of progress, it's going to take 120 years for us to achieve gender equality. And I sat there with exactly the same expression you have, like in shock. I was this ambitious young businesswoman. I came to London to pursue my career. I came from a very strong Irish family of like strong Irish women. The idea that being a woman was going to hold me back had never crossed my mind. And that might sound crazy and naive now, knowing what I know, but it really was such a shock to me. And I always remember sitting in that room thinking, I have no idea how I'm going to make a difference or make a change here, but I know I have to do something. And that was the pivotal moment for me when I went from being, I suppose, just someone who was working to build a career for themselves to someone who then developed a mission of like, I need to be someone who's going to make a change and not just talk about it, but actually go and do something. So that's how I guess my whole journey to now doing what I'm doing really got started.
Laura, when you look at this, if you look at your time clock and you look backwards, was there something in your childhood that really shaped you into this? Was there something that in your childhood that made you say you went into finance? Because when I look at myself, I went into finance because my dad was an accountant, and it said, oh, I want one of my daughters to do accountancy. Both of them said they were doing science already. And I said, okay, Daddy, I think I'm the only one left. I'll do it. I'll become an accountant. And I will see how much I like it. Not like I liked it. That's probably why I changed direction. What led you on that financial path?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I had quite the opposite. Like both my parents were very loving, but definitely they sat back in the approach to guiding me or my 2 sisters on careers. They were like, do whatever you enjoy. And around the time when we were picking like what we want to do in university, I just loved maths. I loved business, economics. They were the subjects I just did really well at in school, and I really enjoyed them. So that was what I decided to study. I didn't know anybody in the finance industry. I didn't know anyone who had really worked in corporate before. So I really went in quite blind to what to expect, which I think in many ways was actually a blessing. Because not knowing what hurdles may face you can be really helpful in corporate and in business, because you turn up every day and you're just doing your best and moving forward without having that limitation of, oh, but there's going to be extra challenges or there's going to be extra hurdles. I didn't see them. So I moved through things maybe more naively and fiercely than I may have if I had been skewed of the vision to think this will be harder for me.
I love that naivety, because sometimes when you overthink things, I call it the over-process in mind. When you over-process, this is going to happen, you've seen it happen, then that gives you that fear. Because when you look at yourself, you chose a male-dominated sector to work in. So you didn't just choose a sector where it might be easier to get by. You chose a really hardcore male-dominated sector, and you focused there to build your career. What were some of the challenges when you started to work there? And even though you went there blindly, not knowing that there was a segment and difference between the male and the female, the way we work, the way promotion is being handled, the way work is looked at. What were some of the challenges you saw as you were progressing your career within that male-dominated sector?
So I'm going to balance this question because it's such an important question to ask with some of the opportunities too. But I think actually one of the biggest challenges is that it's not expected that you're going to succeed as fast as you may do. So it's very normalized within these industries, in the industry I was in, within these environments, for men to succeed to the top. That's the narrative we've seen play out all the time. It's what we see when we look around. There's male dominance in leadership and the partnership. So for women to rise very fast within those ranks, it's almost seen as an anomaly. And then people question why. Well, what are you doing? oh, you must be just getting favoritism. And so people begin to doubt your success and try and justify it, rather than saying, well done, you, congratulations. Actually, you must be really great at what you do, especially in a very male-dominated space if you are succeeding. So instead of championing it, oftentimes the resistance back is to doubt it, to question, why are you getting the success you are? So I think actually, at the crux of it, that is one of the biggest challenges, because then it leads to, God, the gossiping, people trying to tear you down, and people trying to get in your way of promotion, not wanting to support you, keeping you out of circles, and all these different things that can happen, not inviting you to networking events, intentionally trying to kind of stop your progress. But as I mentioned earlier, before I'd even moved to London, I was really active in the whole personal development space, which I would put down as to the reason I was able to accelerate my career. I came to London and I began to work in our global, within this global team. I was traveling around the world. I was sat on the board of a company for about 18 months, taking this big shipping company through a $1 billion financial restructuring. And we were bringing in a massive amount of success for the firm. And I was a woman working within the oil and gas space, working within financial restructuring, oftentimes the only woman in the room. But everything I was learning and applying from personal development and the work I had been doing on my psychology enabled me to succeed and thrive in those environments. And what may oftentimes be very intimidating, I decided, well, you know what, I don't have the opportunity to blend in here clearly just by the fact I'm here, I'm standing out. So how can I use this to my benefit? So actually seeing being a woman in the room as an opportunity. Like, how can I communicate and build relationships with people here differently? How can I understand or take a different approach to things? So especially within financial restructuring, we need the cooperation of the company, of the team around us. So using some of the more innate skills as a woman to be able to get people on board with us faster. Like, so looking and seeking out the strengths and the opportunities that you can bring to the table as the unique person that you are, especially if you're an only in the room.
That's really amazing, because that's what so many people struggle with. They go through it and they struggle because of what you just mentioned about the challenges of people trying to tear you down. You're not quite sure of your work. You start doubting yourself. What mindset do you need to move past some of these barriers you mentioned? How did you look back at it and train your mind? I know you said you went through the psychology process, but what mindset do you truly need to move forward?
I mean, that's a really great question and a big question. I mean, it always comes down to the confidence to know that you can do it. But I also believe there's a lot of work to do around your belief system. And, there's a couple of things that for me, especially back then, really helped was like remembering whatever I focus on is going to magnify. So if I focus on, oh, poor me, I'm the only woman, and I hear all these statistics about the inequality, then I'm going to only perpetuate the intensity of that experience. So let me shift my focus, like acknowledge that's an issue, know I want to do something about it, but shift my focus to, I'm the only woman here. Like, how amazing is that? Like, I get to be here. So let me use this time. So shifting your focus and shifting the framing that you bring to things is really, really powerful. And then along with that, it's like working on your belief system. So if you hold a belief that I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to be here, I'm an imposter within this space, then that is going to be playing out into everything you do and hold you back from, seizing opportunities, from putting your hand up, from speaking up in a boardroom, from, being rewarded financially as well within corporate in the way that you deserve to be. So, alongside reframing things, refocusing, it's working on whatever beliefs are sitting there in the background that are stopping you from expressing your true uniqueness and greatness within the environment you're working in as well.
I love that confidence bit, because I think once you gain that confidence, you're able to walk into a room and believe in yourself and believe that you can achieve anything. And that noise of anybody else that's trying to pull you down just goes away, because it focuses on what you're truly there for. You're there to do a job, and you're there to give it your best, and that's all you could do. So I love that, and I hope more and more women could adapt to that and learn the best you could do as a human being is forget what if you're a man or a woman, is to give it your best and ignore the noise. And
Yeah. And Anne, you're a perfect example of that as well. You're a perfect role model for like embodying and living that truth, right?
yes, I tried, Laura. It's
You
not.
don't try, you do.
It's not always easy. It's so difficult sometimes, but we just keep going because at the end of the day, we have an obligation to others because other people are looking up to you and asking, oh, I look at your page and I see how well Laura's doing. I'm like, oh, this is great. I could do this today because if Laura has done it this way, then it can be done. Then if we go on to your podcast, you started this podcast, which is, I was looking at it, you've done about almost now, it's now clocking almost 300. Let's put it towards the 300 side. You're almost there. And this, you make this make millions to impact millions. I podcast, and this interview is driven entrepreneurs from around the world. So you can get people around the world, entrepreneurs specifically. And what are the common themes of pain that entrepreneurs that you see when you talk to these entrepreneurs? What are the common things that this struggle of their pain, their challenges, that you've noticed that a lot of entrepreneurs have had to endure to be successful?
So I'd like to approach this question probably from two different angles, kind of looking internally and externally. So I think if we look internally, so the majority of people I have on the podcast are female founders. And again, the whole purpose of my podcast is to give examples of more incredible women like yourself who are, walking the talk, who are following their dreams, building these very purpose-driven businesses, using their passion, their gifts, and being incredibly successful. But one of the kind of biggest challenges that I've come across from the multitude of different women that I've interviewed, it is the confidence, right? That initial confidence to keep going, the self-belief. And so earlier when I mentioned it, whether you're in corporate, whether you're building your own business, it all comes back to the belief in yourself. Like there's that famous quote by Henry Ford, whether I think I can or think I can't, I'm right. And it's that sense of belief that, yes, I can do this. And, if we look at the broader terms around intentional creation, manifestation, law of attraction, it's like we're constantly manifesting and creating our own reality. And that's being done through our belief system. So if we don't believe in ourselves, then it can never happen. It will never be a success. And we have to sell ourselves on our own success first before anybody else. So that would probably be one of the biggest things that we see, or that I've seen, that women have to have had overcome to get to where they are. I guess secondary to that, looking externally, it's been financing. So getting access to financial support, financial resources, investment from external parties as well will be the secondary biggest challenge that they're facing. So I'm putting it out there. It's something as a progression in my own business that I definitely want to create as a financial arm to our coaching business, is so that we can actually invest directly into female founders and give them access to funding so that they can create their business that they dream of and get it off the ground and scale to a bigger magnitude. That is definitely a work in progress, and I'm putting it out there to see what the universe is going to bring. But it's definitely something I see as a very much a necessity for female founders. If we truly want to change how the world operates, if we want to change the number of female business owners, female entrepreneurs rising and succeeding, then we can't do that without talking about financing. Because yes, the personal development piece is massive, it's key, it's so important, alongside the financing of those women as well. So that's kind of fundamental. So those probably be the two biggest things I've seen as a theme throughout my interviewing.
I love the fact that you talk about financing, because it's something people are, I think women in particular, are always shy about that word finance, money. So the money talk is something women don't understand. We don't have that courage to go out there and source that money. We don't believe in our idea in the first place. So we don't believe anyone should support the idea. How do you think we could start getting women confidence about their ideas? Because you say a guy, and it doesn't even matter if the business makes sense. They're positive that it's going to get funding. When I compare my son and my daughter, I could see My son, he doesn't have a science then. If he's thought about it, that's it. I'm going for it. But my daughter, she has to have a science it. She has to think about it, think about the process. So how do we get women now to start believing and stop over sciencing these things and just go for it and believe that they can achieve something more?
Yeah, I think the whole conversation around women and money is thankfully something that's being had more and more. I see across different forums and communities. And I think one of the biggest things is conversations like this, like normalizing women having conversations around money, normalizing women conversing over what are you investing in, what stocks, are you in crypto, are you buying, like where are you investing your money, how are you growing your wealth? And having conversations even for women in corporate worlds or working for businesses, like having conversations around pay and salaries and negotiations, and are you negotiating your bonus? And what I have found is that in my personal experiences, I've loved maths and business. I studied finance, I became a chartered accountant, and I've spent almost 10 years working constantly with everything around money, right? We're either restructuring money, we're looking for money. I've been living and breathing that space for so long. But I still had limitations I needed to overcome. So all my personal development work, I still had so much work I needed to do around improving my mindset around money, the narratives of, men are the breadwinners, men are the ones that are good with money. Women don't really live in that space. Despite being an accountant working in finance, I still had my own limitations and in terms of mindset that I needed to overcome. But I think the biggest thing is A, having the conversations around it, and then B, sharing resources and tools for women to actually access to support them in that journey. And even to today, I'm always amazed when I speak with women who have no idea about wealth creation. They may be even really good at making money, but it's all sat in their bank account and sat in savings account somewhere. And there hasn't been that next leap onto what are you doing to invest, to the point that even within my own business academy, we do, 80, probably 85% of it's all very focused on business. And I've added in a specific phase specifically on investing because I'm like, if you're making more money, now you need to know what to do with it. So let's show you some really simple tools on how you can at least get started on that journey and not have it feel like it's something really scary or risky to actually get involved with.
How did you get into speaking? Because a lot of young people watching this will be like, oh gosh, she motivates others, she gives one-on-one coaching, you're an international award-winning speaker. And it's something you've been doing for a very long time since you left the big corporate world. You started this, your online, your big community. You do the podcast, you coach other people. How did you get the confidence within yourself to start the coaching and start speaking again?
So my speaking journey actually started before I realized. So it was back when I was in, and you mentioned touched on this beautifully earlier as well, Anne, about the importance of role models. And one of the great sayings that I love from Mahatma Gandhi is you've got to be the change you want to see in the world.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And so back when I was working in corporate here in London, I began to realize that one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest hurdles women noted as to why they weren't progressing is the lack of role models. And so many women feel like I need to see it being done before I can believe in myself. Mm-hmm. Now, from a personal development side, we flipped that around, but for the majority of people, they need to see examples. So I also realized that if I'm going to talk about equality, if I'm going to talk about progressing women in business, I can't just talk about it, I also need to do it. And so began, speaking up and part of global campaigns for my firm, speaking up on stages, organizing these events and being the face of it. Not for myself, because at the time I definitely was speaking up even when my voice shook, but it was doing it because I knew the impact of being a role model and the importance of having your voice heard. Because for everyone even here listening today, you have a unique message that needs to be heard, that only you can deliver. And so that was the kind of seeds of what got me started. But when I began to build my own business, I actually went back and trained as a professional speaker and wanted to learn, how can I deliver this message with more impact? How can I stand on a stage in front of thousands of people and hold their attention and let them feel like I'm speaking directly to them so that I can actually help them have their own transformation? So that's why I ended up going back and retraining and, now host events and speak on big stages internationally. because I believe in the power of message, the power of storytelling, the power of using your voice to make a difference in the world.
And you do this when you look at your work, you combine result-driven strategies with spiritual tools. And I wasn't quite sure, how does she do it? Combine, your work with spiritual tools, because I thought that was two separate things, but you do it in a very, very unique, marvelous way. So can you describe what these spiritual tools are and why are they so important in achieving results?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's such a great question, because I know on the face of it, sometimes they can seem very like polar. Like, are you not just into strategy, or are you over in the woo-woo stuff? Like, they don't always seem to kind of marry together. And look, to be honest, when I worked in corporate, chartered accountant, studied finance, I was all about strategy. Give me all the strategy I need. But until I started learning, from the likes of Tony Robbins and Bob Proctor, some of my early mentors, about how to use your mind to create success. So when I speak about spirituality, it's about understanding how you can become an intentional creator of success. How do you use your mind? How can you use your own personal energy and your own personal power to create results? And for me, that's like the bedrock of success. That is the foundation. And so understanding, like, how are you actually creating results? Because even looking at you here today, Anne, everything around you, you've created intentionally, whether you've realized how you've done it or not. There's a very specific way that you've done that. And so when I say spirituality, it's like bringing awareness to how we are creating results in your life, and then using that more intentionally to create to create the desires that we want, and then layering on top the strategies for how we can go about doing that. So for me, they're very much interconnected. They're very entwined. To do one without the other feels like futile. So that's why I'm very passionate about bringing strategy and spirituality and actually marrying them together in everything that we do.
Actually, I love the answer, because I think it's something we all take for granted. The spiritual side is about utilizing the mind, thinking about I want this, but you also think about the process. You think about it a little bit in a different way. And sometimes it's something we get disconnected with. We just have the strategy. This is how we're going to get it, but we don't realize there needs to be a connection somewhere to make this actually happen. And it's something you've described so well. And I think anyone who's following your page, you understand, because you actually practice that a little bit in your page as well, on your Instagram page. When you talk and you do this short videos, it really manifests in there. So I think keep up that great work. But finally, I have to ask you, why does mentoring women entrepreneur give you so much joy?
So I believe this is my life purpose, to be quite frank. And, if we look at why we are here, I believe each of us have a unique purpose for why we decided to incarnate into our world, into this physical world. And for me, it's to support women. I've always, it's always been there now that I look back in my life, but I never saw it, what I was actually meant to do. But when I'm looking back, we can connect the dots, as Steve Jobs would say. But I believe my purpose is to support women, to support them become financially empowered, and to live out their own unique life purpose through entrepreneurship. So for me, living out my life purpose, getting to work with just the most incredible women around the world and see them express their own uniqueness and gifts and talents into the world, and as a result have an impact, it's just this amazing ripple effect of like impact in the world. And it just, it brings me the greatest joy, receiving messages from my clients just to say what a difference it's made, the impact they're making, the results they've achieved. For me, I couldn't think of anything else I would rather do.
That's truly amazing. And you're all doing a great job, because you're reaching so many women, and you're really, like, for example, what you've just said about the confidence. A lot of women know about it. They don't really think how much that impacts or hinders their success. They think, oh, it's just, I'm not doing this. They don't realize that there's more they can do. And you've just now navigated what we need to do to help us in our path to find joy. Thank you so much, Laura, for this beautiful interview.
Thank you, Anne. It's such a pleasure to be here with you, and you're amazing. So grateful to be on here with you.
Thank you. I appreciate this. Thank you very much.